Introducing the epic new Swift. Time to go swifting.
वॉचो ऐप पे देखो एक OTT के दाम पे सारे OTT शान से. Dispirited, crestfallen, on the brink. Pakistan are yet to bring their A game to the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2024. Having lost 2 games you thought they had no business losing, one by dint of opposition, the other by situation. And yet, it's exactly where they were 2 games into the 2022 edition, and they ended up being finalists at that one. If Pakistan are to do a similar turnaround tale, which would be eerily similar to remarkable campaigns of theirs from the past, their quest has to start now. They need the win now. They go up against Canada, who are so buoyant, having claimed their first ever win at a Men's T20 World Cup in their last outing. We build up to match number 22 of the 2024 Men's T20 World Cup on Maruti Suzuki Arena. Presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout, powered by Dish TV Watcho, where we have the company this Tuesday of Urooj Mumtaz from the UK and Niall O'Brien, who has been jet-setting his way throughout this World Cup and is now in Florida, if I have got it right. Hello to both of you. Yes, good morning to you and good afternoon to you, Urooj. I will start with you, Urooj, because this backs to the wall is the best place for Pakistan at most World Cups. They are cornered, but can this team be Tigers too?
They've got all the skill, they've got all the personnel. It's about stitching one good performance together. And I think, again, we've repeated this, it has application, decision, and obviously it'll all come to where they are in terms of mental headspace. They'll have to clear out the losses, and it's not going to be easy because, again, we said this is probably the lowest point in Pakistan cricket. The loss to the US, probably the biggest news it'll make in history for Pakistan cricket in terms of losses, even for World Cups. And then for the way it happened, like you said in your introduction, the situation against India, Pakistan should have not lost from there in the manner that they did. So they've got their work cut out. Canada will have a spring in their step. They've put up a really good performance against Ireland, scored big runs against the US as well, and they've got a few match winners in their lineup as well. So for Pakistan, they've got nothing to lose. Yes, the teams of the past have been really good when their backs are against the walls, but at this time the group really needs to come together, and it looks a little bit more different than with the teams in the past.
Right, and I'll do a more glitch-free introduction to Niall O'Brien now, who started this World Cup in Guyana, found himself in Antigua, now in Florida. Quite the travels for you, Niall. Let's talk about Canada. They would have known at the start of this World Cup that these last 2 games, they'd be looking forward to it, especially given the amount of connections in the Canadian squad to the subcontinent. But they wouldn't have imagined in their wildest dream they'll come to face Pakistan being above them on the points table.
Yeah, it's a beautiful opportunity for Canada. I must say they've been a delight to watch so far. And I thought in the first game against the USA they did some really good things. They put a good score on the board. They were spirited with the ball. They were just down by a very dominant batting display by the USA. And then against Ireland, well, you know, for an associate nation to topple a full member and outplay them from start to finish, we've seen associate teams be full members before, and I've been part of those victories myself. It's generally down to 1 or 2 kind of freakish performances, but for Canada's victory over Ireland, it was just an all-round team effort, very disciplined, and now they've got the opportunity to come against Pakistan, and you know, if they turn Pakistan over, they send them home. It's a great opportunity for all of Canadian cricket and all these players. As you quite rightly mentioned, there is, you know, some nice stories, some background stories from, you know, where some of these players learned their cricket, applied their trade, and now representing Canada. I think this could be a cracking contest because Pakistan are going to be so nervous. And as I mentioned, if they lose, Pakistan are gone. And I fear that if they lose, this could be the end of some of these Pakistani players' careers. There seems to be so much pressure and hype from back home about the manner of the losses in the Super Over, obviously, to USA, and then, you know, that absolute shambolic run chase really against India when they should have just got the job done and made a real mess of it. So for Canada, like, you're turning up to the ground this morning, you think, you know what, guys, it's a bit of a free hit. We've got nothing to lose here. And it's how Pakistan. I accept what Urooj was saying about the mentality and disciplines, but now it's the talking has to stop. Players have to step up now and perform because as Gary Kirsten quite rightly said in his press conference, and it was quite punchy from Gary Kirsten, only his second game in charge effectively, you either move with the times or you get left behind. So I think already Gary Kirsten is looking towards the future and who might be in his side. So for some of these Pakistan players, the talking has to stop and they've got to start performing.
Yeah, they have started brightly, Pakistan. They've won the toss and they'll field first. Although the last 3 days of action in New York have seen very low first innings totals defended. So I wonder what we'll make of it. But it's worth bringing up the points table because it is also entering that phase of the tournament where permutations and combinations and scenarios are on everyone's mind. Pakistan yet to get off the mark, but they do have this game against Canada and then Ireland, who they play in the last game. Win both of those and they finish on 4, and then they are hoping for USA to drop points against India and then against Ireland. What does work for Pakistan, 2 losses, but one of them a super over, one of them a last ball finish, means their net run rate isn't rocked that much. Let's get to the toss, Urooj. Pakistan bowling first. You'd imagine that was their first preference, but having seen the action in New York of the last 3 days, are you in agreement with that decision?
100%. I think the decision is fairly straightforward. It was just their approach with the bat. The game against the US, the way they bowled was difficult to sort of process because Amir got out of retirement to do exactly what he was asked to do, gave away 18, game of wides. You've got the batting personnel. It was just a round. For Pakistan, the decision's right. The one thing that they will have to turn up with believing that they can repeat a bowling performance, probably do a slightly better bowling performance as well, to restrict Canada to as less as possible. Because again, we could keep coming down to the point that the surfaces are slightly more skill oriented in terms of approach of conventional batting. More towards the longer version of the game. And the problem with Pakistan is that the only one that stands out in that list is Babar Azam, who was actually looking good the other game. The rest of it is slightly more tricky in terms of which batter can stand the test of time. And I say this because of the poor show that they have sort of shown in the last 2 games. It's come down to that point that we're actually discussing whether Pakistan will be able to stand up against Canada's bowling come the second half. So I think they'll have to restrict Canada to something similar to the last couple of games, 120 or less, and then definitely have a better show with the bat when they do come around. Because batting on the surface, whether putting up a score or chasing, is difficult, and we've seen that throughout games that have been played at New York.
We'll wait to see whether that batting show is better, but what we can confirm is that batting show will be different because Pakistan have made a change. And it comes right at the top. Saim Ayub gets his first game of the World Cup. He replaces Iftikhar in the playing 11 with Babar Azam slated to bat at number 3. Urooj, make of that what you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have Saim when I spoke to you guys in the build-up of the show. I did have, however, change in batting order because if you want to make use of the power play, the Riz Babar show isn't going to cut it. Hasn't cut it for years now, and it's been the discussion point for 3 World Cups in now. And on the first 6 again against India, they didn't make use. But Saim comes in. He's again the kind of person who won't chew up deliveries, will be quick with the strike rate. And then Fakhr and Usman, and they've gotten rid of Iftikhar. I thought Iftikhar wasn't used rightly. He should have been sent up prior to Imad in that game again, because he's the kind of finisher who likes a couple of deliveries first to get a sense of how the wicket's playing and then go after his shots. But they've stacked another power hitter, or at least somebody who bats rather quickly and does not waste deliveries up the order. But I'd still like to see Fakhr, Usman and Saim to slot in between Rizwan and Babar and not have Rizwan and Babar bat together, at least in that first 6 to 8 overs. So if one of the strikers get out, you send another one in as opposed to get Rizwan and Babar in together. So it's an interesting one because there's 5 openers batting in the first 5 slots. And that's the conundrum Pakistan has with the selection that they picked in the 15 going into this World Cup.
Yes, and that has been a talking point through Pakistan's 2 games, and even when the squad was picked, Niall, that when you look at that squad, the way they'd been picking their playing 11, it almost felt like you're carrying people on the bench who you don't really have roles for in the playing 11. And as Urooj points out, you now have a top 5 where almost everyone is best suited to batting right at the top of the order.
Yeah, I remember when the initial 15 was selected, and I sat in London with a few other guests discussing the various teams, and that was our immediate thought that jumped off the page: is how do you squeeze 4 or 5 opening batters into that top two? Some teams, like the likes of England, for example, they've got a lot of opening batters as well, but they've got a bit more flexibility. I think someone like Johnny Bear, so he could open the batting, but he's also good in that middle order. But for Pakistan, I think I do like the change. Salim Ayub's a good cricketer. He's been a little shy, I think, of runs in the most recent past, but generally he's got a free-flowing bat. And actually, technically, tactically, it's a fresh set of fresh mind going into this game. Someone who hasn't maybe got some baggage from the last game, some scarring. So hopefully for Pakistan, he can come in and play his fluent best. The power play is difficult. It's a difficult pitch in the power play. Yes, you want to get as many as you can, but actually it's important you don't do too much early damage to yourself as well. So as aggressive as he likes to play, the southpaw, he just would be a little bit of a word of warning not to go too hard too soon and get himself used to conditions, because even a 42 or a 44 or 45 for one in the power play on that surface, that's equating to probably 60 or 65 in Rawalpindi or Karachi. So don't set your stall out too high in the chase, whatever you're chasing. And then for Canada, well, listen, you've got to bat first. It's going to be difficult. But at the same time, they've got to try and get themselves to some kind of score where they can be competitive in the second innings and just try and hang in the game as long as possible, and then prey on some vulnerability and maybe some Pakistan fans in the crowd who are getting a little bit anxious, a little bit tense in the chase. So it could be an interesting run chase this afternoon as well.
Yes, and even though it comes later in the day, it is the biggest talking point as far as Pakistan is concerned. Batting approach. Will Saim Ayub change that? You've seen their coach, Gary Kirsten, who's only 2 games into a new assignment, has already issued what you could call a veiled warning. Kirsten, in the aftermath of the 2 losses, came out and said it to the media. I think for me the most important thing for every international player is that you continue growing and developing and understanding what the demands of international competition are. The game is changing pretty much every year, so if you're not up to it and you're not improving, you're going to get found out somewhere. As that headline says, evolve or get left behind. A clear marker laid down by the coach, Urooj, now for the batters to show whether they can respond.
It's somebody from inside the Pakistan cricket who's actually put into words and voiced it. It wasn't a hidden fact. It wasn't rocket science. It was said from the outside. It was high time it was said from within the group, where you recognize that there is an issue and then you try and fix it. I always felt there was slight resistance from the Pakistan players in accepting that they were being left behind, in accepting that they need to evolve with the modern game, which is evolving at a rate of knots. And you see that the evolution of players, even the likes of Virat Kohli, albeit he didn't require, but even he has evolved his game, and he's by far one of the best cricketers that the modern game has seen. But the likes of Josh Butler, there's so many players. You saw Rishabh Pant the other day end the game with a reverse lap for 6. And you have to evolve. So I like this from Gary, that he's voiced it, and somebody, like I said, from within the group has told the players enough is enough. Very straight warning, because they are going to be left behind. It's not the first time we're discussing the same issues. It's not the first time we're discussing Riz Babar with the strike rates. It's not the first time we're discussing power play. It almost sounds like repeat for the last 3 World Cups that they've played. So I think it's high time. If you want to be real contenders and if you want to picking up global, you have to evolve with the times.
Yes, it's also the 3rd time running in the 3 games they've played at this World Cup, but we are going to do something different, because while the broader conversation continues, ESPN Cricket Info Smart Stats has taken a deeper dive into just trying to break down what the world means, or what the questions really mean when we speak about Mohammad Rizwan and Babar Azam's contributions. First up, we look at team-wise, and we're trying to show what the impact of big scores among full-member teams can be. And what this table attempts to illustrate is the number of 30-plus scores by batting sides which come at a strike rate which is above the match strike rate. So that middle figure, while it may seem complicated, what do we mean by that? The average scoring rate of a game, how many times are Pakistan's batters playing knocks of 30 or more runs, which are above that run rate? There are very few. Only 68% of 85 such knocks in the last, since Jan 2022 in games against full member nations have come at that required strike rate, above the game strike rate. Sorry for being a mouthful. And only Ireland have had lesser such innings. That, in a way, illustrates where the problems lie, Niall.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow up with Urooj's point, for the third World Cup in a row, my bigger question is why is this only being identified now publicly by someone within the management and someone within the coaching setup? You cannot ask a player now after 2 games of a tournament to start playing differently. It's impossible. So, leaving it to this stage to try and make, we got to evolve our left behind. You can't just ask someone to go back totally differently now against Canada and against Ireland, because it's just impossible. Your template, how you played the game for so long. So to have these conversations, as you mentioned, time and time again, it's at the players' discretion as well. But there's also other people who have been working with these players for 4, 5, 6 years that haven't obviously, made players accountable. Maybe conditions in Pakistan, the PSL, that I've got friends who play in the PSL. They're the best batting surfaces in the world, but then outside Pakistan it's totally different. So adapting to conditions. I watched Pakistan and Ireland fairly recently. They won the series. They weren't massively convincing in how they went about some of their cricket there either. So I think that the broader picture is accountability of players, but also management and coaches that have gone before in previous regimes to evolve the players and make sure the players are comfortable with getting better and take them out of the comfort zone. Otherwise, if you just keep doing the same things and expecting different results, well, it's the real sign of madness, as they say.
Yeah, I want to get you in on the next data point, Urooj, because now we break down Pakistan's batters individually. We've shown you how, as a team, they're lagging behind when it comes to impactful scores and impactful contributions. Now you look at this table, and this illustrates why Rizbar dominate the headlines as much as they do. There is no shortage of 30-plus scores by volume. Both of them have 20 each, which is twice as good as anyone else for Pakistan since the start of 2022. But only half of Rizwan's 30-plus scores come at a strike rate which is above the going rate of that match. And for Babar, that number is only slightly better with 11 of 20. Urooj.
Yeah, I think that sums it up, right? It's about that. Who came first? Where's the problem? Is the middle order the problem, or is the top order the problem? For me, and I've always voiced it, for me, it's the problems at the top. The problems at the top, why? Because Babar and Rizwan on average would bat 12 or 14 overs at that strike that you've just shown, in aim to taking it deep and almost setting up the middle order for failure. Because what happens is that you leave them with maybe 7 or 10 deliveries every other game, and you're asking them to go at a strike rate of 160, 180, 200. It's almost not fair. And then what happens is, and I say this because the management has always said that our middle order collapsed. Our middle order didn't fail up to the recent past. And then hence why there's been over 20 odd personnel, 25 plus personnel that have been tried in that middle order, where the tops remained the same. I feel it's the top that needs to go faster, and that graphic illustrates that, where Rizwan and Babar just, I feel, don't do enough. Even the other game against India, Rizwan defended 30% of his deliveries, so he wasn't looking to score, and that's where the problem is. The other problem also is that you need to understand that Rizwan and Babar's scoring shot range is limited to what other teams might have in that positions of 1, 2, and 3. And that's why, coming back to the point that we've been discussing, I think apart from the management and the coaching staff, which has been responsible, I think it's also onus on the players. They need to be responsible. They need to accept that they're not the best going around in those roles at the time that they play for Pakistan at the top of the order. So they need to do better. So for me, the top order needs to play faster, and then allow for a platform for the middle order to pick up, as opposed to, because Rizwan and Babar have a very healthy strike rate in the last 5. But that means they need to bat up to the last 5, and they leave too many runs behind in the first 15 overs.
Yeah, since both of you brought up the chicken and egg debate, I'm inclined to bring out the excellent words of my colleague Matt Roller, who wrote a piece on exactly this issue where he says Rizwan and Babar bat deep, which means the middle order rarely gets the chance to face many balls. When they do, their dearth of recent opportunities means they underperform. That in turn means that Rizwan and Babar feel the need to get things done themselves, and the middle order's opportunities are limited once again. What came first, the chicken or the egg? And that takes us straight into the middle order. Now, when you look at Pakistan and their numbers 3 to 7 in the last couple of years in T20 eyes, they are the worst performing middle order. They have used 27 batters. That is a huge number. Even taking stock of experimental sides and players not being available and whatnot, 27 is a massive number, and you see the returns. They're not that much. Niall, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, those numbers just back up what Urooj was talking about. Players not getting opportunities. I'm glad you mentioned Matt Roller. Very, very good writer. Very, very smart cricket brain. Yeah, look, the average of 20 is fine. You know, the average is okay. It's just the strike rate. You need to be clicking at 140 plus there, especially if you're a little bit behind the 8 ball. You know, that run rate might need to be even higher. So, you know, you would like your middle order to be hitting at 140. But if the top 2, top 3 have maybe left you a little bit more than you would like to do, that strike rate is 160. It also, you know, as a cricket player, you strive off having, I suppose, the backing of coach, captain, selectors. And if you're known as an organisation or in an environment that chops and changes, it's difficult as a cricketer to really go out and back yourself, because you feel like every game is your last game. You know, and this isn't a new thing, or this isn't a Pakistan cricket thing. You go back to watching England play Test cricket in the 90s and early 2000s. Like Mark Butcher, for example, you know, you play 2 Test matches, you get 2 ducks, you get dropped. Whereas nowadays, if you play for England in Test cricket, you know, under Brendan McCullum, for example, you could get 6 ducks and he'll still back you. So as a player, you know that people behind the scenes are backing you. So if this Pakistan middle order feels like, I don't know if captain, coach, selector, chairman, whoever the case may be, is really backing my case, how do you go out and try and hit that first ball for 6 with the clarity and the confidence, knowing that if I get caught long on, I'm probably going to get berated in the press. You know, everyone's going to be chipping in and having a go at me, and actually I'm going to be dropped for the bloke sitting beside me in the dressing rooms. So it's a discipline that's not easy to instill in an environment. And as I said again, this is not a Pakistan cricket thing. This has been going on all through the depth of time in cricket all around the world. But it's very difficult as a batter to have the confidence to go out and say, I'm going to hit this first ball for 6. And it doesn't matter if I get out. You need a real strong mental belief and the knowing that the captain is going to back you. So I think it probably plays into that situation as well.
Yeah, let's see.
And just to back Niall's point up as well, you look at Pakistan history and the way they've done. It's the middle order that's got chopped and changed, which again reinforces the point where the middle order's thinking, right, okay, I'll be changed, or here we go again. And the captain's also voiced it a few times, like, is the middle order that didn't, we set the platform, or the middle order didn't come to the party. It was the top, the Riz-Babar combination didn't move too much until the recent past where they slotted Simon, which was the first time I thought they recognized that the top needs to go better. You look at Pakistan, in the first 6, they're down number 7 in full member countries in terms of how they scored their runs. They go at about 8 compared to Australia that goes at about 10. The over 7 to 15 were down at number 8 in the strike rates that we have. Again, all this throughout where Rizwan and Babar. I think the recognition of the problem and the personnel changing and chopping has always been in the middle order. So I completely agree with what Niall is saying as well, that middle order feels even so much pressured because, I mean, like you said, 27 people have been tried in those slots.
Yeah, the global adage is that when the batters don't play well, the bowlers get dropped. In Pakistan's case, when the top order doesn't play well, the middle order gets chopped and changed. We will leave this conversation over here for now and see whether the narrative changes when Pakistan do bat this time around. They will be chasing. Canada batting first. Let's see how they're lining up because they make one change of their own as well. Dilpreet Bajwa is the one who moves out for Ravinder Pal Singh to come in, likely to bat at number 6, which is where Dilpreet Bajwa was slotted in the last couple of games. A Canadian side which is not short of Pakistan connections. There are 3 Pakistan-born players in this squad, including captain Saad bin Zafar, his spin partner Junaid Siddiqui, and left-arm pacer Kaleem Sana. And Kaleem Sana is... he last played a first-class game in Pakistan in 2015 or 2016, where he dismissed Babar Azam. That's the last wicket he took when he was in Pakistan before moving to Canada. Lots of storylines worth keeping an eye out on, Urooj.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that what makes this contest so much more intriguing, and it'll be captivating because it's almost like they'll want to make a point. I saw that interview of Kaleem Sana where he obviously had that sort of chest out approach when he was talking about where he picked up Babar Azam and he'd like to repeat the feat again. The skipper as well will want to make his mark, Saad bin Zafar, with how his team performs. And they've done well coming up to this game. The warm-up game against Nepal, even very close in terms of at least putting runs on the board against the US and an upset against Ireland. So they'll have a spring in their step, and the Heritage boys will want to make some sort of a mark and some sort of a statement against Pakistan.
Yeah, most of that connection will be activated in the second half of this game, Niall. But in the first half, you'll see some of their key performers. Nicholas Curtin has caught the eye. You had the highest praise possible for him after Canada beat Ireland. And Shreyas Mova has been making the runs as well. How do you see them faring in this particular game in these conditions?
Yeah, well, Nicholas Curtin is found batting quite easy on these surfaces. Even the game in New York against Ireland on a tricky surface, he found touch, he found fluency right from the get-go. I've played against him many times down the years. He's a lovely timer of the ball, plays both offside and leg side. And one thing that Nicholas Curtin does well, and that's why he has a good partnership with Shreyas Mova, is running between the wickets was exceptional. You know, they were turning ones into twos and a couple of twos into threes. So, you know, at that venue as well, you got to bat smart. He's a good player, spin bowling. He's got a couple against a bit of spin bowling. He's a good reverse sweeper of the ball. So I would expect Nicholas Curtin to be brimming with confidence and looking forward to taking off Pakistan. You know, Aaron Johnson up the top, excellent striker of the ball, slightly unconventional about how he hits inside out over extra cover. But again, in a bit of touch, he's played nicely in the tournament so far. They've got a nicely balanced side, actually. I really like the inclusion of Junaid Siddiqui for the last game. They raised a few eyebrows when they dropped Nikhil Dutta and brought Junaid Siddiqui in, but he's a good, I'm going to call him a googly bowler. He's not like Samuel Badri, and he's been working on a ball that he's flicking out the front of his hand that's just kind of gripping in the surface and holding. So, you know, he's a man I know quite well. He owns 5 coffee shops in Toronto, and you know, he gave up cricket for a while. He thought his international career was over. Junaid Siddiqui found himself out of the team and working, you know, 60, 70 hours a week in his coffee shops, but then decided to give it one last crack. And geez, he bowled well the other day. He's a lovely bowler. So it's a nice story. And then they've got the pace. They've got some decent pace bowlers. Yeah. Dylan Hediger and Gordon. I think Kaleem Sana is the key, really. He's bowled poorly so far, actually. He's normally very accurate with enough pace, but he's been a little bit wayward in the first 2 games. So I'm hoping for Kaleem Sana that the occasion doesn't get too much from him, and he really kind of prospers here today because he should enjoy conditions.
Yeah, I tell you what, Canada off to a flyer. Aaron Johnson, who started this World Cup with a first ball 4 against the US, has done the same against Pakistan. So let's see how exciting this innings gets. We're not going to do predictions today. We've decided that save that for games that don't involve Pakistan because they tend to swing a lot. So Urooj and Niall, I look forward to your company once this Canadian innings is done. Thank you so much for setting the game up for us. Download the ESPN Cricket Info mobile app if you haven't already. It'll have you covered. So many of these storylines we've touched upon. We've had some great pieces written on Canada's Pakistan connection. They also have a lot of Indian connections, so there's a lot of reading material on offer for you. Download the ESPN Cricket Info mobile app. It'll have you covered. And see you back here at halftime on Maruti Suzuki Arena. Presents ESPN Cricket Info Timeout, powered by Dish TV Watcher.
Introducing the epic new Swift. Time to go swifting.
वॉचो ऐप पे देखो एक OTT के दाम पे सारे OTT शान से।